Hello, everyone. Good evening. It's been quite an amazing day, jam-packed, full of inspiration. Thank you so much for being with us today. And have you guys seen the extrapolation factory work that's outside? You got to check it out on your way out. It's amazing. Um, we have had amazing speakers, amazing conversations, and I'm so excited to introduce our evening keynote speaker. So I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Shohei Shigematsu. So Shohei joined the Office of Metropolitan Architecture, OMA, in 1998 and became a partner in 2008. He's led the OMA office in New York since 2006 and is responsible for OMA's operations in North America. We know his work, we've seen it all around the world, and now we get to see him in person. So if you give me a warm welcome, Shohei. Thanks for being with us.
Good evening. I have 45 minutes and I have a lot of slides, so I'm just going to go ahead and start. I'm very honored to speak here because I have some best friends in North America, in this city. I just want to start from my background because I guess when you are in a conference, you tend to promote your company, but I just want to speak about my own personal background. I'm from Japan originally. I don't see the screen on this one. I'm from Japan, and this is the GDP growth of Japan, as you might know, since after the war. So basically, there is a kind of steady decline since 45 after the war until now, as you know, and it's marked by a significant economical crises, like the oil crisis and the collapse of bubble and now credit crisis. And this is the superimposition of my key moments in my life that somehow coincided perfectly to those big economical crises. So, when you talk about architecture like Rem Koolhaas, you tend to focus on booming moment like modernization. But I was doomed to born in the perfect moment in Japan that is not at all a modernization, but basically demodernization. So this is basically showing the area of GDP growth compared to my parents, which is in purple, and light blue in mine. So you can see how the area is quite different. So I also thought what that means as an architect to live in the modernization and demodernization. Also in terms of design, this is, let's say, the design of 60s in Japan. It's very edgy, sense of gravity, sense of edge, sense of color, sense of material. This is one of the mainstream architecture in Japan now after such a long crisis. I mean, they think, well, of course, people in the world see this as a kind of exotic architecture, but I see it as a part of the outcome of a long-term recession. So this is no sense of edge, no color, and no sense of gravity, which I call it Muji architecture, which is like, it seems like there is no brand, but of course that's kind of exactly the same message as promoting no brand as a brand. So for me, this is a reductivism that actually has been contaminating Japan for a long time in terms of design field. I realized that when Muji actually sold this kind of Rubik cube, which is in the 6 shades of grays, which I thought it was kind of at the extreme moment of reductivism. But because I was doomed to live with a downturn, I actually investigated a lot the potential of the post-crisis. So in short, I did a lot of investigations at universities, but in short, when the economical indexes goes down, instead actually the human feelings index goes up. So planning, connecting, thinking, feeling. So as you know, one of the typology that gets built right after the crisis is often a religious architecture. This is like a religious ball that is kind of grafted to a suburban mall. And as you might know, a lot of inventions actually had been made through the recession time. and also not to mention architecture and urban manifestos were written during recessions. As you can imagine, during recession, architects don't have enough work, so they can focus on writing. Born in Japan, I was very interested in experiencing actual modernization. So this is China, right next to Japan. Um, there are three mega cities, but as you know, in 2025, in 10 years, there will be 10 more mega cities. So basically, the entire east coast of China is one big city of almost like 5 billion. Um, so it was very important for me to go there and experience the modernization. Also experience the diversity of the world currently. This is a GDP growth overlapped with the human rights index. As the wider that you are, higher in human rights. But you can see the growth typically coincides with darker colors. So, of course, China is a different regime, as you learned as a, in the capitalist normal country. But more and more, as an architect working in worldwide, you have to deal with a country or thinking or culture that is not coinciding with what you think is right. But you still have to build as an architect. So that's a kind of interesting issue for me. And as you can see here, the red is non-democratic countries, and non-democratic countries have higher growth currently. So China, this is just a quick snap of CCTV headquarters, which I was a main designer. So after now, it's been there standing like this since the Olympics, so almost 7 years. Just a snapshot of daily life in Beijing and the building in the background. Of course, the building captures the air like this with a cantilever, so it looks very different from different angle, and also it has this kind of strange depth um, in the skyline. And it's actually not so high. It's 234 meters. So sometimes it just disappears in the skyline like this. The shape, this is looking up from the podium. So again, it's quite complex geometry. And by the way, the clock is also not moving, so I still have 45 minutes. Um, so now it started. So this is inside. You can see the intense structure. After this building was made, which is second biggest building in the world in terms of area after Pentagon, the Chinese government changed the regulation how much steel you can use in a single building because we use too much. As you can see, basically in this building you can't escape from this kind of structure, which of course is making this building stand, but one might say it's excessive. This is office space where you basically have sometimes the structure as an object or art piece. And this is an observatory. It's also quite intense. After designing, not just designing such a macho mega building, our work also is a quite diverse design practice. So this is a completely different project for Prada. I designed an exhibition for Prada, just showing their 100 skirts in 15 years of Miuccia Prada's work. So just showing a skirt in the exhibition was a traveling exhibition. So first we wondered how we can show the movement of the skirt. Of course, when it's static, you can't really show the feature of the skirt. We thought that maybe this kind of flat mannequin on the airline counter and so on was interesting because you know the picture of the catwalk is actually quite dramatic. You know the one from front because the models walk quite well. So we decided to actually show the movement of the skirt by showing on a panel on the cardboard in a still, but actually twice as big or two and a half times as big as the actual size, and then array them on exhibition space. This was done in a Prada store in Tokyo. So one would walk basically through the forest of legs and skirts. So this was actual exhibition. So the backside was mirrored so that you can actually show the silhouette of the walk instead of the picture from behind. So this is just a mirrored back. So you can see here people walking through the legs. We also put the explanation of the skirt on the backside of the mirror, which was a kind of ironical, our kind of cynicism to the vanity of the fashion world. So this is a head of Prada Japan, which you never know if he's looking at himself or he's reading the explanation. There was a situation where we wanted to put people in. Also, Prada is, as you know, is a very brand that is not so consistent. So every year they have delivered very different types of skirts. So we decided to show instantly the character of each skirt or the group. For example, this is a group that we vacuum pack the skirt that has an interesting plan. Skirt you always see in elevation, but here it's a plan. And also it was a traveling exhibition, so this vacuum packed skirt actually could easily travel to the next venue. These were the skirts that had a really three-dimensional cut or hard fabric, so it standed as without any support. So we showed it as a kind of piece of sculpture. And this was showing the movement of the skirt with some kind of a device. So we used the ceiling fan motor to rotate the skirt in the building. And again, we use the mirror here to see the underside of the skirt and put the explanation of the skirt on the mirror so that you don't have to hesitate to look underside of the skirt because you can read the text. So this was the how it rotated. So you see with the different speed, with the different heaviness of the fabric, there is a different speed. We also use the car wiper motor on the battery, so it's not connected to any wire, and hang them on a skirt. So this was a skirt that had an interesting sound to be made when you wear them. So again, people were wondering how it was moving, and without any hesitation, you could see look underside of the skirt. I have to say the entire team we did this exhibition design was all guys, so there's some kind of pervert moments. And then we did this exhibition, a pavilion called Transformer in Seoul in South Korea, which consists of 4 different shapes put together into one triangular pyramid. It's a very complex shape connected by membrane that rotates each time the event changes. So this was the site. This was the cinema, this was the art exhibition, this was a kind of festivity with the local students. The first exhibition was this skirt exhibition. But in order to, because this was the first exhibition and we wanted to communicate that in the future this object will rotate and what you see as a wall and ceiling will be the floor, we decided to have these mannequins walking on those future surfaces like this. So in order to, it's a simple idea which we thought was good, but of course in order to make that happen, it was a huge deal to put them up. So these are the scaffolding just to put them all up, and all the guys carrying legs, putting them one by one, mounting onto the steel. So it was supposed to be such an easy installation. It became like one of the biggest moment inside. So it went overnight, of course. So this was one of the most beautiful moment actually in the whole exhibition. Um, so we also do a lot of fashion related contributions, and one of which is also dealing with a denim brand, as you might know, Raleigh Denim, run by this very nice couple, um, like probably younger than I am, which I never asked their age, but definitely younger. Um, so it's quite important for architects, I also think, to work with the same generation or younger, because um, you know, in a bigger project you tend to work always with a much higher age, and of course you tend to forget what your generation is about. So uh, it started through our collaborator Patrick Hopgood, who is also here, also from Raleigh, knew them, and then they have already a shop in Raleigh, but they wanted to open a store in New York. We went to their factory slash shop here in district, factory district. They welcomed us with this kind of very subtle um, wall installation. And this was the factory. As you might know, they use the kind of very authentic devices to saw. And this is their store, which was very kind of charming. And you could see that they are, you know, in a constant change, and they're thinking every detail, every possible display as a communication. And this is their paper planes mounted on their ceiling. So what they wanted was a kind of hybrid of showroom in New York and also a store. And also it's not just a denim store, as you might know, and it's also a curatorial store, so they also sell things that they like. Um, so we thought, you know, the craft coming out of here was quite interesting, so we looked into kind of how the history of craft and how craft was always like a process based, and also, of course, it's always collective. So we thought that the specialization, which is a denim, and the curation could be paired, and we had to fight. We had to, of course, compete against this kind of denim, typical denim store, which sells, you know, the denim as a main foreground, and the curatorial shop, which is this kind of eclectic collection of displays. So we thought this kind of a workshop style and a wonder commerce style can be merged, and also probably or rightfully reflecting the culture of Raleigh and the location, which was in Nolita in New York. I show you a couple of tests. This was like a continuous work table ribbon that creates a courtyard in the center. This was dividing that curatorial part and the denim part by a single wall. This is literally dividing the kind of open side, flexible side, and more kind of defined side. This was dividing in a section, so in the front, the entire display is rising from 0 to higher, like a slope, and then in the front it's more flexible, and in the back it's more enclosed. We also thought that you can actually replicate the facade inside like 3 times, so that you don't know how long you are going into the store. Um, so we did so many things, but which Patrick also, of course, worked on. And this was the kind of southern parlor room, which we thought it could be an interesting feature. So it's not really a shop, but more like an entire store is a lounge, or the reception, like the kind of hospitality lounge. So there's a kind of hidden door behind the display that could open and be flexible for bigger events and so on. But ultimately, we chose the approach that we have been questioning on the fashion world. That uh, is so what you see on the left is the kind of cheapest possible display. So the cheaper the product it goes, or the cheaper the situation it goes, the density of the product goes higher. So this is the market or counterfeit market in China. Of course, the stall is cladded by the clothing. And this is the Tom Ford store on your right, where you don't even see a product, and you just see velvet cladding of the room. So we thought this was strange that the density of the product actually represents the high end or low end. We thought that actually the most luxurious moment is that the owner can actually decide the density in their and configure it by themselves. So we thought this kind of started to think what can facilitate that kind of density change. And we immediately saw this kind of wireframe where you can actually armature that can carry many things, but also start to manipulate the transparency and density. So almost like a kind of entire room filled with scaffolding. So what we did in the end is to create an entry hall and a parlor room and a changing room in the back. And what you see as a black is basically a wireframe space. Like this. So you see on the left is the entry hall, and the right, the circular part is the um, parlor room. So you can hang many things, you can collect many things, and be completely flexible about the future. You can have denim, basically clad the entire wireframe with denim, or you can have many different things, or you can create a wall, or you can do this kind of three-dimensional graffiti using the grid or media. So this was how it was finished. So you see the wireframe, and you see the product as the kind of forefront of the room, not your velvet cladding. So everything is hung. And sometimes flexibility is a burden for lazy owners, and I understand that because I'm me too. But when we met Sarah and Victor, we thought we can rely on them to actually engage this potential and continuously change, because otherwise, providing flexibility it could be in vain easily. This is their stock next to the changing room, which is on a Ferris wheel style, so you can actually roll it and choose the color or the size, which is visible from the entrance. And you can hang many things. This is just hanging diagonally so that you have the shirt to longer coats and denim. And we developed these kind of different boxes that you can rotate and completely flexible about displaying many different objects. This is Louis Bourgeois' installation, which we were inspired. So we made this kind of lifestyle hanging device, which you can hang many different things in one hanger. So you can manipulate the density. You can sell only like 5 pairs of denim like this, or you can do the kind of family sale style like this. So so we thought it was quite interesting to provide that possibility for the owner. And as we predicted it, they started to get bored with the first configuration. So they started to do something. This was the kind of first attempt to actually close partially and create a kind of datum of opening. So I also think that this at this level, like architects are not any better than actually fashion people to actually design the space. I think they have actually much better taste than architects. So we really wanted to create some kind of a space that is a complete collaboration, and we just provide the armature and they will just execute. So they do many events still here, and they just also changed recently again. So it's kind of working as we predicted it. Um, so these are the kind of fashion, and now I would like to go into art. We do many art-related projects from institution to collaboration. So this is the institution. This is a museum in Quebec, in Canada. Um, this museum was in a park, as you see in blue, existing, and this city, Quebec City, existed parallelly. The city and the park existed in parallel, but the museum was always in the park. But they acquired a site in the facing the Grand Allée, basically the main boulevard of the city. So the city, for the first time, the museum became also a city museum, not park museum in the park. So what we did is to basically charge this moment where two entities are colliding, so city and park, by basically peeling up the ground like this. You let the city come in and also park to continue and also art to extend at the same time. So it's not just museum that is extending, all three entities extend at the same time. So you can see that it's the topography of the park continues over the museum, and you see the city coming in and providing a big kind of entry hall for the entire museum complex. The boxes are basically a straightforward translation of what they needed. It was next to the church, was stacked. So from the city side, you see this kind of floating box. And this is a grand hall, which is a column-free space surrounded by many different programs. Um, because in Canada, it's not entirely sustained by private donation like US, so they have to raise their funds by themselves. That means they often use the museum itself as a kind of event space to get the rent, the rent. So they organize so many different events on this level. So it's almost like an event space and the museum on top. So they do, of course, art events, or they do a wedding, or they do a performance and so on. The circulation is organized on the left side, basically justified, but it starts to kind of inform the gallery spaces on your right. So this is a kind of circulation that goes over like 4 levels. This is the basement with an auditorium, and then through this kind of atrium, you go up. And then there's a stair. One moment that the stair goes outside because there's a nice park in front. And you're surrounded by trees. And then you go back into the museum. And then you frame sometimes the assets that are around the site. The structure is a steel structure. The facade is triple glazing. As you know, it's very cold climate. And we had to deal with the solar gain. And it's a fritting. It's a pattern that we applied along the structure. So you see vaguely the kind of a blurred structure from outside. This is how it is now. They're pretty fast in erecting steel now, so they're almost done with the entire steel. And now they're putting this kind of big stair recently. So that's institutional work, but during the recession time, we couldn't get any big institutional project, but somehow we got called by many different individuals, successful individuals like him. Um, um, I think nowadays the individual who has a lot of money are actually as powerful as institutions, and they are actually even more radical to project what they think or what they could do. Kanye actually thought one day that he told us, one morning he thought, why isn't the cinema experience multiple screen, and it's all in one screen? So he wanted to shoot a film that specially made for multiple screens, and he picked the number 7. We liked that kind of very abrupt idea, so we took it very seriously and started to really mock it up immediately. So this is like, okay, what does it mean? Of course, in architectural history and display history, it's not the first time, but we thought it was interesting to hybridize to this kind of actual cinema experience. So that was a screen, and we immediately rigged like 7 cameras at once on this kind of really ghetto style. Uh, and then that was the kind of very beginning. And then this is the actual camera that they shot in Doha. And this was the dimensions of screens that we used in the end. Of course, we had a lot of studies. And also, we were asked to design a pavilion. We thought it could be interesting that this screen can actually fold into a box, and then it starts to unfold and create 7 screens. Or we thought of immediate marketing because it's Kanye, so it could look like this kind of UFO, an object, and then we can maybe sell it as a Google too. Um, but through this study, they quickly identified the first inauguration of this. It was really like 3 months away. So this was the Cannes Film Festival. So our site was quite far away from the main area, but it's at the tip of the peninsula next to abandoned casino. Because it was rushed, we couldn't actually design a new pavilion. We had to deal with existing tent that was already approved by the French government. So these were the 4 typologies that we were given. We immediately picked the pyramid, not just because of this picture, but Kanye actually has this kind of fetishism to, of course, this kind of um, Egyptian, or maybe not Egyptian, but his label with the Jay-Z has this kind of uh, sign, which we thought was beautiful, that maybe we should just do the pyramid. And then also, during the Cannes Film Festival, you have all this white generic tent everywhere doing events and drinks and parties. So we thought we could just modify that existing tent and like disguise us also as a generic tent, but something different. So we cut out all the mini beams and we made this kind of 4 big beams at the base and hemmed up the entire tent as if the entire pyramid is floating. And it carried all the necessary function like projection and sound and so on out of that structure. And also we wanted to have some kind of statement to Cannes. And Cannes, as you know, it's increasingly becoming more about celebrities, not about film. So we extended the red carpet, not just outside. We had the red carpet not just outside, but extended inside the building. And we had to construct a path so that they don't get bothered by paparazzis because it was, of course, Kanye's event. So this was the final configuration, and we erected it. And this is how we hemmed, and there's no beam, so it looks kind of floating. And then because it was a red carpet, we used the red light to enhance that redness. So the celebrities arrived. And as you might know, during this festival, there are like 10 most expensive boat parked out in the bay of Cannes. So this actually frames the bay of Cannes and also looking at those boats. And as you see, all the screens and necessary devices are hung. And this is to start. And he basically directed a short film using 7 screens. And 7 screens are used differently, but like as you can imagine, it's the room. The bottom and the top captures the floor and the ceiling. And sometimes one is a slow motion and one is a actual speed. They use the 7 screens quite well. So this was the kind of tent at the tip of the Khan Bay. There's another project we got during the recession, another kind of individual, uh, also quite unique. He's Alain Faena, he's Argentinian. He also had revelation, kind of a realization one morning to buy this abandoned silo in the port of Buenos Aires, and then change it into a Philip Stark hotel. He was a fashion designer, never a developer, so he convinced Philip and the bank to pay for this. And then after doing so, he started his kind of development company, which is not about actual development, but redefining happiness. How he does it is to always add culture to the mix of commercial buildings. So he also has this kind of repurposed old building in the port as an art museum. So it used to be one of the worst places to go in Buenos Aires, but now, as you can see, the sea of high rises, it's one of the highest real estate in Buenos Aires. So he transformed the entire area by himself. So he's now coming into Miami Beach, in the middle of Miami Beach. It used to be very vibrant, but through the recession and so on, it was quite abandoned when he came, like let's say 5 years ago. But he bought existing hotel, and he developed a condominium by Norman Foster next to it, and he commissioned us to design art center in front. Our art center is on the top side, where it says hotel. As you might know, Miami Beach, across the Collins, basically as far further away from the beach, of course, it becomes much less activated. So what we thought that we have to brutally claim the centrality of the entire complex that he has. So we divided this main site, into two different volumes, dealing with Creek side and Collins side. This was our first model. So you see the red and the wood, so the kind of different identity facing different sides. And also we made a kind of immediate circular shape, because the existing hotel had this kind of arched frontal facade. And also the Norman Foster had a wedge shape, so as if wedge was kind of pointing at the center of the circle. So we kind of retroactively claimed the center of the entire complex. Of course, that resonates the Miami style modernism. So it's a combination of a cylinder and a cube attached together that looks like two different buildings, but it's actually one building. So the cylinder has a domed space, and the cube has a black box. So it's also a combination of very classical style space and the contemporary space attached together that could be used together like this. Or it could be used separately like A and B. This is a model. The arrival in Miami Beach is always quite a dramatic one, and you have to basically design it really well. So this is exterior space that is covered exterior space. So we cut the cylinder to let the landscape come in deeper into the building. So the final shape was like this. One side looks like one volume, from the other side looks like two volumes. Because of this cantilevered space, we had to mobilize the skin. So this is a kind of juxtaposition of different regulation and structural need that made this kind of palm tree-like skin that is structural to hold the entire volume. Circulation around the cylinder is like a spiral. You enter from that covered exterior space, and then you arrive to this kind of a lobby where it could also be used as an event space. You go up, there's a dome space, which is also spiral, and you can do about 1,000 people event. And this is a black box site where you can actually have a big window to look to the creek, but you can also black out. The dome is also structural, and you have an acoustic a plate above it, which you see in red. So you can actually have balconies looking down to the events. We also did insertion of a courtyard in existing protected hotel next door, and then the mechanical parking where the car the car elevators are exposed, so you can see the movement of the cars. You see, this is the current state. The site is excavated and the water is out, so the construction is starting. Um, Another individual, she's an artist, Marina Abramovich, quite well-known long durational performance artist. So she has been doing since, of course, 50s and 60s, a very long durational performance like this with his boyfriend. She walked halfway of the Great Wall for 3 months just to meet with his boyfriend at the center. She lived in front of everyone in the gallery, and as you might know, this one in MoMA, she just stared at people uh, the entire day for 3 months. She just did the show in Serpentine, London. She wanted to make a venue that preserves the long duration of performance. The site was in Hudson in New York, upstate New York. It was a community center before, but they poured a concrete to make an indoor tennis court. You can see the line of tennis court. It was a kind of brutal operation. So they had the balcony from the community theater, but they cut the balcony in the shape of tennis court. It's amazing how sports can override culture. So we reinserted a flexible space, almost as big as a tennis court. Then all these kind of events could happen inside the building, but it has to be over 6 hours. That's the rule. So we design, of course, flexible flat space, but it has to be over 6 hours. So out of this kind of constraint, we thought we could respond in 3 different manners through architecture. In such a long duration of performance, you can't really fully engage the performance for the entire duration. So this is her performance in Guggenheim, but there's always a kind of second ring that is what you call audience 2, which is not fully engaged, but semi-engaged the performance. Which we thought was kind of similar to a baseball game. As you know, baseball is, of course, exciting, but it could be horribly boring. So the current trend is that you have this kind of concourse, open concourse. So you have concessions, but you are not detached from the field, but you are kind of stay connected. Or you can actually do something else while you're watching the game, as you know. And this is a kind of extreme case in Arizona, where, of course, they don't care about the game, but they just want to. The bath happened to be in the field. So the typical case in a performance space is that lobby and performance is detached, like a binary system. But we thought long duration performance space, dedicated space, should be somewhat blurred. So we arrayed all the different functions around the performance space so that you can actually do something else while you're observing the performance, or you're semi-engaged doing something else. So the audience 2 is basically a second ring surrounding the performance space. So while you're reading, while you're in a cafe, while you're in the gym, while you're anywhere in the library, you can actually look down to the performance space. Another thing which was interesting was that she developed this method called Abramovich Method. Typically, of course, performer trains themselves for the performance. But in a long duration of performance, she thought that the audience should be also trained because it's so long. So she's developed this kind of series of meditations that trains people to deal with the boredom, to deal with the long duration, which is called Abramovich Method, something like this. What's unique is that she gives a certificate of official audience for the long duration performance after this training. So we made this kind of different rooms of training rooms on one second level. and you start from a point, and it's a loop that you, by the time you come back to the same place, you get certified audience. So your phone gets confiscated, you get lab coats, you meditate in the quartz room. So we design all these kind of different rooms for meditations. So eye gazing. What's interesting about this method is that, as you see in this picture, these people who are on lab coats are trying to be an audience. But what happens is that there are a lot of people who are actually observing the audience, or audience try to be a certified audience. So there's a kind of second tier of audience that is observing an audience as a performer. So basically, and typically in any theater, of course, everyone looks at the performer. But in this theater, you no longer know who's the performer and who the audience is, which we thought was interesting. So we also designed this kind of windows that can observe each other. The third one is a chair. This is a chair she used for the MoMA show. So because she couldn't stand up, the toilet was embedded in the chair. So in the long duration of performance, we, of course, can't use the typical chair. So we designed a chair. Dealing with the long duration, of course, there's different ways to deal with it. This is the typical way that happens in our office quite often. This is the space station, the medical bed, airplane. But we thought, again, it's kind of interesting how she does, like a kind of hybridize the kind of training and working. So in the end, we decided to combine like mobility to comfort. So she thought by being able to move while you're on the chair is quite a luxury. So we designed this kind of wedged. It doesn't look comfortable at all, but inside it's kind of comfortable. That is a kind of movable chair at the same time. She liked this because it looks like coffins. So while someone is kind of sleeping, it looks like someone is in the coffin. Well, that's what she said. Um, She thinks that sleeping is a very strong reaction to the performing, so she doesn't accuse people of sleeping. She actually embraces that. So she actually wants her staff to roll out people who are sleeping into a different chamber to have even further relaxed sleep. So that's also coming. So it's existing building that is going to be converted. This is a model we made that you can put your face inside, you're inside the models to observe those different windows. That became a kind of icon. This was a campaign to raise money. This was in PS1 in MoMA. We used this model as a kind of centerpiece, and everyone took this shot without your head. I recently was covered in Icon magazine, and they didn't take my face, but they used this photo. So lastly, I just want to go very quickly now. We are doing many mixed-use buildings, and we are thinking that mixed use is becoming kind of a generic. And mixed use has been actually, it was a kind of a great typology, for example, in Downtown Athletic Club, as Ram Cole has said. But now it's overused, we think. It's becoming a generic typology. For example, this is the city of Tokyo. The different colors represents different region, different character in the city, big enough to house different characters. If you compare that to, let's say, a meal, it's a kind of a la carte style meal where you share things. It stimulates conversation. But nowadays, there's a lot of prepackaged program for different commercial uses. These are two main towers, developments that happened in Tokyo that has exact same program. So we compare that to a kind of a bento box. So it's a kind of prepackaged program that are kind of replicated over and over and again, over and again. So that's what used to be very kind of interesting and kind of conversation stimulating now became such a predictable table. So that, of course, is a kind of extended towards the city. So no matter how architects try to change this with, facade design or shape, in essence, what's inside is basically repeated. So it's becoming more and more generic. So that's not just Tokyo. Of course, it's kind of replicated everywhere. So I skip, but I just want to show you one project. This is in Jersey City. So basically, as an architect, still, of course, we have to design mixed-use building. This is a project we did with Patrick. This is in Sao Paulo, as you know, very vertical city. The site was L-shaped, and one side was Walmart, and the other side was art school. So we thought that, and this site had projected towers like this, so it was a new central business district. So we argued that maybe we shouldn't do this kind of generic towers, but instead kind of horizontally extrude those programs and stack them like a screen. So basically shielding art school from Walmart. But having in different levels in the sky lobbies, we wanted to have a very Brazilian style, very kind of casual, but also semi-open sky lobbies, what you see here. The program is such: hotel, museum, office, in different width. So what you see, we convinced the Walmart at least to green their roof. And what you see on the left is art school. But you see the kind of impact of the wall, how radical that is to compare to the towers. It's more or less the same size as this Niemeyer's famous Copan, but straight. And the office is quite generic and very extremely generic and efficient. But in this kind of sky lobbies, it's a kind of very open and landscaped level. Because there was Walmart and art school next door, the site is quite constrained. So what we are doing is to erect the cores first, and then put the cranes on top, and then start building from the top down. That will save some time for the construction. Lastly, a lot of people think architect's dream is a height, but I have different theories that architect's actual kind of egoistic dream is wall, not a tower. So these are kind of different futurists or irresponsible architects kind of projections in the past, these kind of wall cities. UN, this is in Hong Kong, now in Singapore. So actually, the same client bought the site next door, so we recommended them to continue the building like this, so that it actually starts to create this kind of Great Wall of Sao Paulo. And lastly, we're doing a project in Santa Monica, also mixed-use building. That building and landscape is hand in hand. So it's always a program has a garden in front, a public space in front. This is the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. You know the Tower of Babylon, but this is a monument of land that is made for his wife. So we said this is not a kind of height building, but for land. So it's a kind of unhinged program with different distinct park in front. And I just want to end with this animation. So on the ground level, there's a plaza that houses like farmers market and so on. In the center, there's a cultural program. Because in a commercial building, perimeter is very important, but the center is actually redundant. So we actually put the cultural building in the heart of commercial building. In from every bar, you can actually go up to the next program through atriums and through mini buildings inside, embedded in as a hinge in every hinge of the program. There is a sound, or is so this is the main plaza on the street. This is close to Third Street Promenade, so it's like just 2 blocks. So we're hoping to basically create another destination next to the very linear public space. This is a collective area for the office. There are a lot of tech companies moving to the beach at the moment in LA, so there is a huge demand for huge, large floor plates. As you know, in Santa Monica, almost more than half of the time you don't need air conditioning, and the temperature inside and outside is more or less the same. So the relationship inside and outside is quite strong. So this is a roof, which is reflecting pool, but also at the tip, it's a pool for the hotel. I would like to thank again for the organizer and Patrick and Sarah and Victor for inviting me. Thank you.